Okay, the last two chapters focus on something that's sometimes taken for granted, labor cost control. Basically, they're one of your biggest costs, obviously next after food, in almost any operation. Obviously, without labor, you have no operation. And most of your employees, basically, they're entry-level hourly positions, and there's a lot of turnover. Basically, the last stat that I saw that the restaurant industry is the second highest turnover rate industry in the United States. I believe as of right now, the insurance industry still has us beat, but I'm sure we'll catch up at some point. People call off for the wackiest of reasons, and it's very tough to keep good people. I always hear managers and owners say, I need people, I need people. And then over the last 5 or 6 years, if you followed anything in the political landscape, fringe benefits, basically health insurance, bonus plans, that costs a lot of money. So when you go for your first job and go for your first managerial position, make sure you inquire about that. Make sure to see what kind of fringe benefit packages that you have. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the fundamentals of labor cost control. And remember, we're controlling labor. I'm going to repeat this. Without employees who are skilled, knowledgeable, and interested or trainable, an operations goals can never be realized. In other words, if you don't have good employees, your restaurant's not going to operate properly. Really simple. And the middle part I have here highlighted for you. Labor cost control starts with the procedures used to recruit, select, orient, and train employees. And I can't emphasize this anymore. And this mistake happens over and over and over. Restaurants, hotels, they hire out of desperation. They need to fill a void. They need to have a body there because they're short-staffed. But the question you have to ask yourself is this: why are you short-staffed? Why are people leaving? So you need to have an effective recruitment tool. And so many times people hire someone, okay, there's a body. Can you work this time? Okay, let's start tomorrow. And that still happens a lot, even in big operations. Now, once employees are trained, obviously the next step is having a procedure for supervising and appraising them and training them and evaluating them. I'm going to cover this very shortly. And here's some of the tools you need to have. You need to have job descriptions, job specifications, and these definitions in your textbook, organizational charts. Who do you report to? We talk about descriptions, specifications. A lot of times people say, well, that's not my job. I'm not supposed to do that. Well, yeah, you are supposed to. And people they're very confused. It's a lot of ambiguity. And a lot of times people use the shadow method to train people. Here, follow this person around, and he or she will show you the ropes. And let's talk about job descriptions. And basically what it does, it summarizes each job. Let's say you're a busboy. Your job is to clean the tables. But are you supposed to give water to people? Or is that just the waiter or waitress's job? Are you allowed to help serve once in a while? Who knows? Maybe yes, maybe no. So that should be specified. List some of the major tasks for a job. Just like I said before, your job is to clear plates, maybe interact with the employees, serve water. Should you serve coffee? Well, if the waiter or waitress is busy, yes. If not, maybe not. That could be a major task. Who cleans the bathrooms? Is it the dishwasher or the busboy, or a combination of both? Indicate the employee's supervisor, and that's key. If an employee doesn't know who in the heck they report to, or if they have multiple supervisors on the same shift, long story short, bad things happen. They need to know who to go to if there's a question, problem, or issue. And also indicate who the employee supervises. Maybe they have someone underneath their purview. Odds are they probably don't. They're an entry-level employee. But once again, sometimes like, well, I'm not your boss. Oh, yeah, you are. Oh, okay, I am responsible for that. And these are questions that need to be answered on day one. Now, what are some uses of a job description? Basically, when you try and recruit and select someone, you want to have the right people applying for the right job. So if you don't describe your job properly, you may not have the right people applying for it. And this happened to me a couple times early in my career. It's like, oh, I didn't know I had to travel for this job. Yeah, it's a blah, blah, blah position. Well, maybe you should have specified that. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't be wasting your time and my time. So when you have someone applying for a position, say, look, it's only part-time, it's full-time. Do I need to work weekends? And these are important concepts so you can actually pre-filter people before they apply. And also for job descriptions, designing training programs, daily supervision, performance evaluations, and I'll cover this very shortly. Now, selecting the right applicant. And here's some of the important steps. After someone does apply, whether it's online or in person, usually the first interview conducted by the Human Resources Department. It's almost like a general interview. Now, if it's a small restaurant or a regular chain, oftentimes it could be like a regular manager or a general manager. Then you do your reference checks. Sometimes it's a background check, depending on where you're working. Now, the second interview is key, and this is important. A lot of restaurants and places don't use that second interview. It should always involve the person who will supervise the position. That's key. Because one thing that almost all managers don't like, all of a sudden the GM will come up to someone and say, hey, guess what? I hired so-and-so, he starts tomorrow. And you're like, okay, should I at least meet the person first? I think it's very important you go through what I call an assimilation process. When a potential entry-level position is going to report to a potential supervisor, they need to know each other before they start on day one. And when you develop a training program, and I said this before, don't just use the shadow method. Say, okay, follow this person around because he or she's been here for a long time. Well, guess what? If he or she has been here for a long time, maybe they're not doing something properly. So then you have two people doing something incorrectly. Develop a job breakdown. Find out exactly what their job is, what's required. The job description should be very specific as possible. Do I take out the trash? Do I not take out the trash? We actually lost someone 3 weeks ago as a morning person doing a breakfast buffet because she didn't know she had to take trash out every day and she ended up quitting. I think it's kind of ridiculous, but once again, she probably wouldn't have lasted anyway, but these are things that should be covered on day one or before day one actually. Develop a standard, that's key. This is the standard. We dress like this, we talk like this, we do this, we don't do that. We clean up after ourselves, we interact with the guests a certain way. Everybody needs to know what the standard is. Then of course implement the training. Obviously you need to train. Then the key part here, and this doesn't happen enough, evaluate the training, coach and follow up. So many times we put so much effort in recruiting, getting someone hired, and then all of a sudden, boom, okay, you're on your own after a week. Okay, what's going on? Well, I have a problem. Then what do? You ask other employees. You need to follow up, and as a manager, entry-level manager, general manager, or human resource department, put a little tickler in your calendar. Say, okay, 3 months from now, I'm going to follow up on Jean and see how she's doing, just to kind of say, okay, well, let's see what we can do, what we can't do, what's going right, what's going wrong. And from a human element aspect, that's very important. Now, the infamous performance evaluation. A lot of people treat this like from an employee standpoint as like, oh no, what am I doing wrong? Or they say, okay, it's time for my evaluation, time for my raise, because they feel they deserve a raise because they've been there for so long. So make sure that the tone is set and what is the purpose of the evaluation. You want to identify measurable factors of your performance. Explain the performance to the employees. Don't wait till the day of your performance and say, okay, we're going to judge you on this, 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 and this. If you have no idea what you're being judged upon, how do you know if you're doing a nice job even on day one? Collect the right data. Discuss it with the employee. And this part's important. Permit the employee to express views. Maybe you think something about the employee that may be incorrect. Or maybe the employee said, gee, I had no idea I was doing this wrong. I thought this was correct. And sometimes, message perceived is message received. And once again, don't always accentuate the negative. Every employee is a strong point. Sometimes some are harder to find than others. You don't want to make it an angst, actually not angst, you don't want to make it a stressful situation where there's a lot of trepidation. Obtain commitment to improving performance. Maybe it's a system problem. Maybe you set up that employee for failure. So maybe it's on your restaurant. So you got to do things differently that way. And here's the part that always seems to fall through the cracks. Conduct formal appraisals, and I put in there every 6 months. Annually is fine. Quarterly is not long enough. I would say at least periodically, probably for a better statement. And a lot of times the employees will say, you know something? I haven't had an evaluation in 2 or 3 years. Why? Because there's like 4 or 5 different managers coming in and out, in and out, in and out. So you got to really adhere to that, and that's tough. Worker satisfaction. I completed an entire master's class on this one time, so I can go on and on about this. Obviously, I'll spare you the boredom. But most people feel, hey, if employees are getting paid a lot, they're happy. That's not always the case. Matter of fact, higher wages usually, according to many studies, bring what we call short-term happiness. If you're not in a situation that you're happy, guess what? Your performance will fail. So make sure that employees aren't bored. Give them challenging work. A sense of personal accomplishment. And here's the part that's key. A feeling of being appreciated for performing acceptable work. And that works for me too. And I've been around the block many, many times. My old GM gave me a card literally 4 months ago saying, you're doing a great job, Mike. I've known her since she was 18 and she's in her 30s. I used to be her mentor. But something? That meant a lot to me because it shows, something, you're being appreciated. It just kind of picks up your day. Sometimes you want to increase responsibility, and basically some people want to advance. Some people want more responsibility. Some people want a goal so they can reach something maybe for management 6 or 12 months down the line. Now, the infamous turnover. I've covered this before. Let's go into more detail here. Here are some of the reasons why employees leave. Personal reasons. Maybe they get relocated, change in personal family status. They get married, they're having kids, they have a career change. Maybe they want to get additional education, go back to school. Now, you as a manager, you have very little control over that. Something that happens, nice having you, thank you. The door is always open if you want to come back. The ones that are tough, the ones you really need to focus on are what we call the job-related reasons. Conflicts with a supervisor or a coworker, lack of job satisfaction, you're bored, you're upset, uncompetitive compensation, in other words, not getting paid enough. These are the issues you have to say, something, are we doing something wrong, or is it just as simply stating it's a whiny employee, see ya, don't need you around anymore? And these are things you need to evaluate.